Hello, everyone. I'm so thrilled to have you here for today's episode of Divine Union because today I'm going to be doing a personal share about my own path to union and my own journey. And I'm really excited to speak about this topic and the situations that have come up in my life that have invited me to deepen my understanding of what true union really means in within self, in inner union with self, sacred union in relationship, and oneness with the cosmos and all that is. And I'm going to share about some of the relationships in my life and journey in my life and who I was and how I've evolved and how that's shifted with the experiences I've had. And this is the driving force behind the work that I do with individuals and with couples, because it's really all about coming back to our own empowerment and our own self love and our own needs and desires and uh, really holding ourselves highly and knowing that no one can make us feel whole except ourselves. And I'm really excited to share about my journey because I didn't always have this attitude towards union. And when I think back to who I was when I was a kid, even in my teens, even in my 20s, when I just moved to New York out of college, I always wanted to feel seen by the masculine. As a kid, my dad worked a lot and he's an incredible man, worked to provide for his family, but he worked a lot. And he was gone, given he was providing for us. And it just so happened I was and still am the most sensitive one in my family. Like I'm emotional, I'm sensitive, I feel things deeply, I care for others deeply. Things can easily hurt me or offend me. And because I care deeply about others, my own feelings I care deeply about, I'm sensitive with. And I remember when I was a kid, my sensitivity was always I internalized it given the reactions of my family members and my father in the masculine representation. I always internalized it that my feelings were too much. I was too needy, I was too sensitive, something's wrong with me. And this dynamic, this internalization of what was just the truth being that I'm the most sensitive, and not everyone's born into family dynamics for a reason. We all play a role, or we all have a unique role to play, and that can shift over time. But knowing that I was different in that way, and but the way I internalized it, that played out into all of my relationships moving forward. And so, me always wanting to get the approval of my father, of my mother, of my family members, me wanting to feel like I wasn't too much, I wasn't too needy, nothing was wrong with me, but still feeling like there was something wrong with me. I minimized my expression in many of my romantic relationships and many of my relationships. I'll focus on romantic though. So I didn't really express what it is I wanted and needed in relationship because I was too afraid to be too much. I was too afraid that me saying I wanted more, or saying I wanted to take that trip, or I wanted to spend more time together, or that I needed and wanted. I'll say I wanted. At the time, I probably felt like need. I needed words of affirmation and quality time and physical touch and those love languages that are most important for me. And I didn't really ask for those things. Partly because I felt I was too much, and partly because of my partner's responses to me, and me not being confident enough to stand my ground and hold what it is I desire with an open heart. despite partner not being on board immediately, because this often can happen in partnership where we can express something and maybe it doesn't land with our partner, or maybe for a moment they judge us or they laugh at us, or it doesn't resonate, or they don't agree. But still, it's on us to express what it is we want. And so I never used to actually express what it was I wanted. Or I would bottle things up, and then at some point I would probably explode and like demand, yeah, I need you to treat me with respect, or I'm going to walk away, or you'll never find anyone like me. Like I've said a lot of uh, hurtful, manipulative things in my day. And I also didn't really lead the direction of the intimacy. So I would wait for my partner to be the first one to express that they want to be partnered, be the first one to say the I love you, be the first one to say they want to spend time or ask me for plans. And then I would just be available, or I would drop what I had to be available. And I didn't really lead the direction of the intimacy, and also lead the direction of how do we work through conflict? What feels good? What doesn't? Reflect on the actual dynamics and voice my thoughts on them. And so I had this one relationship in 2021. And, before that, I was also in a string of relationships that didn't serve me. But I had this one relationship in 2021 that this was the catalyst for this entire journey for me of spirituality and self development. And this is when I got into practicing Tantra, solo Tantra, studying Tantra, eventually got my Tantra certification, relationship coaching certification. But this sparked this whole journey for me looking in. And I had a partner for a year. And we were in San Francisco. And it was our year anniversary. And something drew me to his phone. And I haven't really checked a partner's phone before. So it was like a higher calling, this insight, intuition that just drew me there. And he was in the bathroom, and I looked at his phone and I saw all these texts to all of these different women. And he was cheating on me. When I say something drew me to his phone, I want to also caveat there were red flags about this kind of inappropriate behavior with other women. So it's not like it was just out of the blue. Yeah, there were these red flags that I ignored. I didn't like the way he looked at other women. I didn't like the way he talked about other women in front of me. I didn't like the way I saw him seek validation from other women in my presence in a way that didn't feel right. But I ignored those because I so deeply wanted to feel seen by him and feel loved by him. And I was so afraid of abandonment by the masculine, by him, that I stuck with a relationship that didn't feel good, or at least I didn't even give it a chance to shift because I didn't express these things that concerned me. Or maybe I did and it would turn into a fight, and then I'd shut down and I would stuff them down. And I didn't know how to communicate in a way where we could have a legitimate, healthy conversation. This is also why I'm into the communication work, because it's been a part of my own journey of not feeling comfortable expressing because I didn't feel confident in my actual communication. And so I would shut down if we'd argue about something that was important to me, and then he'd maybe give me the silent treatment or avoid me, or just the fighting was so exhausting I would shut down and I wouldn't bring it up again until it got me really, really angry. And so he cheated on me. And so when I found this out, I was like, that's it, you're going back to New York, I'm going back a day later. And it was a huge pause and reset in my life. From that moment, I started actually looking at myself and my patterns. And I was like, what does this say about me that I end up with somebody like this? What does that say about my own lack of love? What does that say about my attachment patterns? What am I afraid of? Why do I stay with people like this? Why is this a pattern for me where I end up with people that don't actually see me, don't respect me, don't honor me? And what I realized through this process is I don't see myself. I never saw myself. I didn't love myself. On the outside, you would think I did because I had so many friends. I was the center of attention, the connector, the community builder. Everyone loved me. I was fun. I was cute like I am now. I was cute. I had the best clothes. I had the nice things. I went out to the fancy dinners. I always got invited to the best parties. But deep down, like the people in the inner world, like the closest people to me, my partner at the time, even though it wasn't a healthy relationship, like I'm sure they could feel it. I didn't love myself. I didn't value myself. I didn't honor myself. And therefore, I didn't stand up for what it is I value, what's important to me. I didn't work through what my non negotiables are, what I desire in partnership, how I desire to communicate, how I desire to work through conflict, what kind of man I want, who I want to be in partnership, how I want to feel, how I want to show up. And so it was this journey for me of literally writing down everything, all my assumptions about being a woman in this world, all my assumptions about men, all my assumptions about relationships, about conflict, about communication, about family values. And I literally started to rebuild it from the ground up of who I want to be and how I want to feel and how I want to speak and how I want my partner to be and what kind of friends I want in my life and how I want my relationships with my family to be. And I looked at where these patterns, what is the root cause of not feeling seen? And where do I not see myself? And where do I see this as an opportunity to deepen into my faith with God and my trust with God? Because the truth is, if I'm putting my partner on a pedestal as I did, I made them God. I made them my God. And when we do that, that is a huge problem because when we elevate a person to giving us our self-esteem, to giving us our sense of validation, to giving us our sense of self-worth or safety or security outside of the creator and outside of ourselves by extension of the creator, we're never going to succeed. We're never going to feel happy. We're never going to feel taken care of because then we're ultimately essentially saying, I'm not whole and I need you to make me whole. And we are all whole and our own divine right. We came here whole. We will leave here whole. It's okay to desire companionship, partnership, deep intimacy and connection, but never to forget that we have that all within. And so it was this journey for me of reconnecting to myself and what it is I want, what it is I need, where I give up myself, where I shrink from rejection, where I shrink out of fear of abandonment, where I react instead of like play and respond with silliness or joy or pause, where I operate from my wounds and my shadows versus from a true empowered queen that I always wanted to be, that I knew I was deep inside. And so it took me time to find her. And this is when I got into practicing Tantra, solo Tantra. This is before I got certified with Layla Martin. And I was still studying her work and other works. So it's more in the red path for me, which is all around our sexuality and our sensuality and finding God there. So going to those areas that are most taboo, sexuality, sensuality, and really finding God through that. And so it was a journey for me of also connecting to myself, being present with myself, mindfulness with what I say, the words I'm saying, speaking with intention, no more small talk. I used to think I was an amazing communicator because I was like, I could have small talk with anyone. And now it's just like, that's a joke. I don't want to have any conversation that lacks depth. And that's who I am. Not everyone's that way. But like being present and speaking with intentionality and doing what I say and saying what I mean and standing up when I think something that I don't agree with is happening, or someone's talking negatively about someone and I don't want to be around it, or not listening to having to listen to people project onto me or emotionally dump their feelings onto me, or my partners showing up in ways that don't feel good, feeling my insecurity. So it's like Tantra is, even though I was trained in the red path around sexuality, it's also around presence and mindfulness in all areas of life. Because Tantra is a huge field. So the white path talks about, it's more of the traditional path where you also learn about yantra, which is sacred geometry and mantras, and the asanas through yoga. It's so deep, this field. And that's why there's different lineages. Mine, the red path also comes from Osho's lineage. And so I started practicing and connecting with myself and also giving myself love with the body. We can all do this through massage, through touch, in any part of the body, because we need that to regulate our nervous system. And so it was also regulating my nervous system so that, like that, I can speak slower and I cannot react. And my tone of voice can soften, as it used to be really harsh. It still can be harsh. Yeah, no, those parts of us are never fully gone. But it's been a practice for me to work with my voice and my presence and my energetics. And this relationship has really invited me to strengthen myself and my core. And then many relationships to follow. It's a continuous journey. So I had another beautiful, beautiful romance, and they just keep getting better with this amazing man. And we had such a energetic connection. Like when you meet somebody and you're like, I've met you before, and it's an unspoken connection, but this familiarity, this deep love, and um, you feel you feel like you've met them before. It's like a soul connection. And I had this beautiful romance, and eventually he had feelings for someone else, or he felt differently about the relationship, and he started being a little more open energetically to flirtation with other people, and instead of communicating it with me. And at that time, it's been a journey for me of deepening in my communication. Now I'm really, really solid. But even in 2022, I was working on it, but still a long ways to go. And I learned from every experience, every relationship, romantic and not. And so we didn't have good communication about also dynamics that come up in partnership. Maybe you feel a pull towards someone. Maybe you feel sexual energy. And how do we navigate that in partnership? And do we communicate openly about it? Not do we. I believe we should, but it's creating the psychological safety. I know that's like a corporate buzzword, but it really is. It's creating the safety for both parties to feel good to express what it is they're feeling. And that comes when we stay grounded and relaxed, because then people are open to sharing because they feel more likely to be received and not shamed or judged or attacked for it. And so I didn't create, and also taking ownership here, I didn't also create the environment where we were openly talking about those dynamics. And so that relationship had ended. And again, another invitation for me to not go to that story from my childhood of, I'm too much, I'm too needy, what's wrong with me? Why can't I keep a man? These things did come up. Why can't I keep him? Why did he look for someone else so quick? What's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? Why am I not lovable? All the stories. And continuing to show me what true union is. And it's really continuing to come back to wholeness. And what did it mirror for me? Oh, I'm sharing so much here. It mirrored for me where I lost my sense of self in that relationship, where I sacrificed my meditation and my yoga and my pleasure practices for the sake of the connection. Just I was trying to spend as much time with him as possible. And I lost me in that relationship. And this is why I also talk about codependence in my work, because I know this dynamic well. And I believe that impacted our relationship, losing our both of us in our own ways, even though I've rewired my attachment style and I worked on bringing in secure elements, but that anxious energy, and he was a more avoidant, those deeper parts can be activated by both parties in a relationship with pending the dynamics and what comes. It's a complicated topic. I'm not going to go into that in depth. But so my anxious parts activated his avoidant parts and vice versa. But we were both in a codependent pattern of sacrificing our own needs. And true interdependence is, how can we both have a healthy level of sacrifice for the whole, where you don't feel like you're losing yourself, but you're doing things for the collective, for the unit, versus I'm losing my sense of self out of fear. And so I'm clinging to you. Or a more avoidant person would probably say, I'm foregoing my sense of self because I'm like engaging in this dynamic that, let me think how I want to say that. Avoidance still also can self-sacrifice, even though they skew more towards independence, because that's why all parties, whether I don't want to label us anxious or avoidant, we don't want to box us in, but all parties, wherever you skew, that's why we can all get into dynamics where it doesn't feel good. So that's the sign. Just it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel balanced. It doesn't feel easeful. It doesn't feel relaxed. And so that relationship taught me a lot. And then I just had a string of other ones leading up to one of the deepest loves of my life, who left me for another woman. And it crushed me. And it was the greatest invitation for me to continue to come back to self love, to inner union with self. I am my own best friend. I am my own best lover. I am my own advocate. I am my own masculine protector. I am my own best feminine queen. And really remembering that nothing external dictates my worth, that I can be an amazing relationship coach as I am, despite not being in one, that I can be an amazing human being, despite not having achieved yet the vision of my career, my dharmic path that I desire, that I could be the most incredible friend, despite the fact that I had a friend out of the blue completely um, sever connection with me. It doesn't matter because it's about who we be inside. It's about how we feel inside and how we show up with an open heart and continuing to relate, to honor our humanity, to have self compassion. Because when we have compassion for ourselves, that's when we can truly have compassion for others. If you ever see people who are hypercritical of other people, you give them a little bit of softness and compassion because chances are, if someone's hypercritical of you, they're probably that way with themselves. And so instead of seeing it as like taking it personal, an attack on you, I feel a little bit of sadness, compassion that maybe that's the way they speak to themselves too. And this is what true union is. And this is how I feel in my life. And for any of you listening, whether you are partnered or not, this is how you will either call in or cultivate the ideal relationship that you desire. It's only through our wholeness that we can fully relate with another whole human being from a place of choice. And when we relate from a place of choice, the levels of intimacy and passion, the sky is the limit for what's possible. And not everyone needs that. Like you may be like, I don't need passion. I'd rather feel the safety. You can still have safety, but it's knowing when safety becomes codependence. And oftentimes people confuse that. There can be safety in the communication, but when we relate from choice and wholeness, we know that we can't control our partner. No ring, no nothing can actually control how they show up. They have free will and choice. And when we don't shame, blame, manipulate anyone into seeing our point of view, staying with us, doing the quote unquote right thing, and we allow people to be human and we still express from our hearts when we're hurt, when we desire something else, when we're sad how something turned out, that's all we can do. And that's scary because that means I can't control you. That means I don't want to limit you from going out with your friends or going to that event because of fear that you're going to meet someone or see someone who's more uh, attractive or interesting because like I'm limiting then your success. That means I don't want to limit you, partner, from achieving your dreams or being, I'm really going to exaggerate it here, being that rock star because I'm afraid then you'll get so much attention from fans and you'll leave me, right? We don't want to limit our partner's growth and capacity for fear that they're going to leave us. We want to see our partners thrive. I want to see my man thriving in his highest state of empowerment. I want to see him feeling so good about himself, accomplishing so much in his career, feeling so nourished by his friends, being around amazing, beautiful women who admire him and love him and value him, yet he chooses me every day because he wants to. And that is not an easy path. And it's sitting with both polarities of love and fear that can come, of joy and sadness that can come, of jealousy and turn on that can come when challenge arises. And continuing to see in every experience, bringing it back to self of where we can learn something from it and where it's an opportunity for us to grow and elevate and expand beyond. And of course, there's opportunities and lessons for them as well. And we hope, we want to trust. I'm going to say we trust that they are getting the medicine that they need in the moment, and that it's all in divine timing, in their own timing, in our own timing. And it's seeing the last thing that comes. I mean, so much comes, but I'm going to try to wrap it up here. It's also seeing the mirrors, because union is truly understanding that we are all the same and seeing the mirrors in them. If I'm judging them for avoiding, for not communicating fully, where are there times where I don't communicate? Where are there times where I just avoid? Where have there been times where I've just left someone out of the blue? Where there have been times I didn't feel like talking about something, working through conflict? And it's seeing that mirror, and it's holding them as divine beings and divine mirrors and sacred mirrors, and remembering that everyone who comes into our life is here to help us elevate and help us grow. And then we no longer have to be resentful. We no longer have to be wounded. And instead we can say, thank you, Elohim. Thank you, God. Thank you, Dios, for bringing them into my life. I text my ex-lovers every now and again as I think about them, just sharing gratitude for the moments that we shared, because those moments I will never forget. And because I feel good, because I feel whole, I'm not texting out of lack or neediness or expectation to respond. So it doesn't matter the outcome, because I want to give the gift of my feelings of gratitude and joy for those moments we had, nostalgia for the moments we had. I would love to hear how this episode landed with you. So feel free to shoot me a DM or leave me a comment. That would make me happy to hear your feedback. And, it's always nice to give a little personal shares in here. And I look forward to seeing all of you beautiful people next week. And until then, may all your unions be divine.